Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Carpo, Agent Carp, if you will. It's the question of the day that I would like to provide for anyone who's interested is when is being ourselves good enough? And it's just a question I've been thinking about this morning. I've on and off. It's one of those kind of vague questions, I guess, that people ask. What exactly do I mean by that? I mean that when is a person content to just be themselves with their value system without feeling like they're still missing some part of themselves? Or when is a person content to just be? Or is that ever a possibility? It's kind of hard to put into words. There's so many different people and so many different viewpoints. It's really easy for us to get tied up in our own and forget other people's viewpoints matter to them very strongly. And sometimes we get so wrapped up in our own ideas of what's right and what's wrong that we forget not just that a person necessarily is right or wrong, but that their emotional state is impacted by the way that we behave around each other. So casting stones at one another for what we think is not necessarily the way to go, but most people who are arguing amongst each other, let's say, are, trying to attain a certain degree of righteousness, to know that they are right. And in that righteousness comes an idea of whether a person is good enough, or whether or not that they've attained a state of a degree of comfort in who they are to where they don't feel like they have to make any more real effort towards being a better person. This is why many of the root philosophies turn me off. Some of the ideas of free will and some of the ideas of non-free will. Everything from the widespread approach to the narrow-minded approach. There are too many viewpoints for looking at humanity, and there's too much information out there right now for people to digest, and people turn to every new fad, every new hip thing that's going on to try to better themselves, and I think that people really do want to be better, but we don't know which way to go, is my point. You don't know which direction to turn. For some it's religion, for some it's helping the world, for some it's, a cause or a motivation to do something to help something. My motive is to gain information on the world, not knowledge, and that's my new thing. And I'm not calling it knowledge anymore. It's information to me, because knowledge implies that you know, and we don't know what we know. So information would be better. You're informing yourself, and a lot of people see information as threatening, as something that people need to be cautious of, but I just see it as something that's kind of open to humanity and open to the interpretation of the individual. But when people have too much information, it makes it really hard to know whether they're leading the right path or doing the right thing in their lives. And people start to question their own motives and themselves. I mean, we live in a crazy world right now. It's fast-paced. Everything's changing. Breakneck speed. It's amazing. I fucking love it. I mean, I can't. When I was younger, I thought, shit, I wish I would have grown up in the 60s. There was actually a time when I was like, I didn't cry, but I was like almost in a crying state. I was really stoned one time. I was like 14, 15. And I was talking about, man, I wish I was born back in the 60s, dude. I would have grown up during the revolutions and been able to make an impact and people cared. But I realized at that point I would be programmed right now so immensely that I wouldn't be able to develop my own opinions, because most people who grew up in the 60s, all the people who went through that time, they developed a lot of their own ideas. But in today's world, it's hard to, I don't know, it's even hard for me to change my ideas of what it was to be a kid in the 80s with tapes. And I told myself I'd never be that old guy who tells other people what's right and wrong. And I don't intend to be that guy. I've learned a lot from kids half my age. You know, I know a lot of 18-year-olds, and I'm 38, so, you know, it's just crazy to think that I was that, you know, I'm double that age, and I still feel like I'm in that. I mentioned something to my kid the other day. We were out here building this igloo, and I said, I was saying how I love the snow, and he said, why? And I said, because I'm a kid. You know, I said, I'm actually a kid at heart. He said, no, you're not. You're an adult. I said, no, I'm a kid. And it was just funny because the way he looked at me, it was just like, and I said, see, I'm a kid in my mind. And today's society looks at that as threatening. If you say that somebody's child-minded, you know, then you assume they're childish, then that means, you know, that's a bad word. If you call someone childish, they take that as offensive. Think about that for a minute. You're childish. Of course, we know what they mean. They mean usually that you're acting on your emotions without thinking reasonably. But kids haven't made a lot in that way. So, just some thoughts on that. I don't know what's the best way to be. I don't know who's the best person to be, or how to make my life the most rich and perfect that it can be. And I don't intend to do that, because the balance will always be there. And as long as we don't have something to work on, I should say, as long as we do have something to work on, then our lives can be rich and fulfilling. But the minute that we run out of things to work on for ourselves, I think we're fooling ourselves. So, peace and love, everybody.